Hi, I'm taking Paul McCorder's vPython class, and we're on tutorial number 13. Still working on the working with a three-dimensional space. Paul went through some review of last week and decided I think that we're going to do the beginnings of a clock. So our homework was to create a clock face, no hands or anything like that, no hands or numbers, just a clock face. So it seemed fairly straightforward. So I thought I'd give it a try and show you what I got for code. So basically, I decided he wanted the 5-minute marks or the hour marks longer than the minute mark. So the minute marks, I decided to do a small spheres. So they're like raised dots on the clock, and the hour marks will be short cylinders so that you can tell they're a little bit, make it look like a clock face. So my code here, we're importing vPython and NumPy. I got tired of having a small screen, small window there, so I increased the size. You can do that by scene.width and scene.height. Just makes your window a little bit bigger to start out with. Don't have to drag it every time. So I decided to do some parameters on here. So I decided that the radius of the clock itself is going to be 8, and then I figured might as well tie everything into that number. So we're at 0.9, putting the minute dots at 0.9. So the radius of the minute dots is 0.9 of whatever clock radius we have. In the same way, we're putting putting a parameter for the length of the arrow cylinders, and just made them 0.4, so nothing big. And then to get the radius, because your cylinder starts at a radius and then has a length, so the beginning position of the cylinder is going to be the shorter radius. So we're subtracting the length from the minute radius. So they'll be in a little bit closer toward the center. And then we're doing it that way. I'm not sure radius of the tick. Not sure where I use that at. Okay, here it is. Okay. Oh, that's just the size of the radius of the spheres. That's all, and the radius of the cylinder. Forgot what I did already. So that's just actually the radius of the clock, and that's some size radius. So if you make your clock a smaller size, your marks will go down with them, or go down or up with them. The way we have it so we can zoom in and out, that's really not necessary. But I figured I'd try to make things parametric. Paul seems to do that, so I'm doing it as well. So basically, we're just making a cylinder, a thin cylinder for the face of the clock. Just putting it up there, making it white. So that's just the face of the clock. And we're just making it started. It's going to start because we didn't give a position. It's going to start at 0, 0, 0, and we're just drawing it back the axis. The length of it is going to be negative 0.14, 0.4, so we can go, so it'll have a negative radius. That way, everything, if we put the rest of it on the z-axis 0, it's going to be half of the sphere is going to show and half of the cylinder is going to show. So I just figured that was an easy way to make everything work out. And basically, we're just using our lens space thing to go around a circle of 2 pi, and we're dividing it up into 60 seconds or minutes for our hand. And like I said, we make this false, so that gives us the right number around. And then all we're doing is making spheres. We don't have to call each sphere a different name. We're just placing it on there, so we can just keep placing. It'll have the same name, but then it'll change, but they'll stay where they are. So we don't have to, since we're not interacting with the spheres later, we're just placing them. We don't have to give them different names. Basically, we're doing our sine and cosine math and our radius of the minute, what we place the radius of the minute at. And like I said, the radius of the sphere is that, and made the color black. Did the same thing for our hour tick mark. So same thing, but there's only 12 of them. Again, we have it false on that. Making cylinders. And like I said, we're starting at the radius of the position. That's the bottom of the cylinder. We're starting at the radius and that we calculate for the hour hand, and going and then our vector is, we're doing the same thing, but we're just doing hour length of to make them go in the right direction. By the length, we're going up a little bit on that, and whatever length we had there. So that's the length, but by doing it this way, we're putting it in the right direction for each tick. Again, you got the radius of the cylinder and the color is black. So pretty straightforward math once you figure out. The spheres were real easy. It took me a little bit of time to figure out what I needed to do for the axis vector to get them to point in the right direction around the clock. So that was took a little thinking to get that done. Here's what we got on that. So basically, like I said, it's a clock face with the 12, 1, 2 all the way around. And if you tilt it sideways, you can see that they are actually spheres and cylinders, and they're raised up a little bit above the white. Half of it's up there. So that worked out pretty good. Don't know where Paul's going to take us on the hands of the clock and everything, so I figured I would make my clock a little bit more pretty and learn a little bit about some other things that we can do with vPython. So add a little bit of code. This is the original code that I had just for the clock face, and decided to put make a flower around the clock just to play with some other things on the clock. So I decided to put petals, like flower petals, around. So we're doing that with an ellipsoid. Okay, so an ellipsoid, you give it a length, width, and height vector, and you for the petal size. So we put the size equals petal size. So that's our length, width, and height. Then we do our radius that we want to put the petals at. We put the radius at the length of the petals divided by 2 and plus the clock radius, so that we're outside of our clock. That way we could still adjust the radius of our clock and probably end up with a bigger size there. So I don't know whether all of this is going to work out parametric or not, but like I said, it really didn't matter. And then this ring here, I just decided to have a red ring. I hadn't done anything with vPython with a ring, so I just decided to work on that. You'll see that when we're done. But for the petals around it, I decided to put 24 petals around it. So we're basically doing the same thing we do for everything going around a circle. We're doing it that way. And then we had to repeat this vector. So rather than repeat it 3 times and do all the calculations 3 times, each one of them is the same for each petal. So it was easier just to make a vector variable for that. And again, it's just our sine and cosine 0 for that. And then, so we create our ellipsoid. Our position is the petal vector, but also our axis. To get the petals to stay in the same place, I needed to use that same numbers for our axis for our petals as well. And then again, like I say, our petal size is another vector that we had up there. Color is yellow. And then once I did it, all the petals were flat. So when a flower, real flowers, they kind of be offset so that they're a little bit different. So I went in and learned about the rotate function for your objects, and you give it an angle. So this is pi/8 or 1/16 of around the circle for that. And then again, because to know how it's going to rotate, it needed to rotate around that same petal vector. So we got to use the petal vector again. We didn't have to spell it all out. So that's used it 3 times in our code. So you can see how that looks. Like I say, it's not much to do with the clock, but it got to play with some of the other functions in vPython. So basically, the red part's the ring, and the petals of the flower. Like I said, you can see there's 24 of them going around, and this is the rotation. You can see the rotation function in work there. So that was kind of interesting. So just decided to play a little bit longer with that and keep it going. Again, I want to thank Paul for all his hard work doing these lessons, and I keep learning a lot from him. Thanks again.